Hello and welcome to another episode of Women of Steel, wherein we meet women of steel and learn at least a thing or two from their life experiences. Hello everyone, my name is Shamika. I'm an engineer by profession and a seeker by passion. So in the previous episode of Women of Steel, we had Susan Davis Ali, who spearheads various gender diversity initiatives across many multinational companies. Do watch that video if you have not already. Today we are going to be talking to an inspiring entrepreneur and co-founder who is living this reality of being one of the few females in a male-dominated field. Introducing Garima Bharadwaj, an inspiring entrepreneur and co-founder of Enlight Research, a deep tech engineering company driving innovation in the real estate business. She is a recipient of the prestigious Times 40 Under 40 award. She fearlessly leads the way for women in a male-dominated field, empowering the next generation of female leaders and creators to dream big and make a lasting impact. Hi Garima, how are you doing today?
Hi Shramika, it's a pleasure being here with you, and I think I've known you from a while now thanks to the Qualcomm days. So it's a pleasure connecting with you again and on a very different platform this time. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're able to take out the time. So Garima, I do have a few questions. Let's start, shall we?
Sure, definitely.
So Garima, can you tell us about your journey as a co-founder of Enlight Research and how did you get started on this path of building management systems?
Okay, so the story goes a little before Enlight and building management system itself. I started out my career with a very, very interesting company which was very nascent at that point. This company was called Oyo Rooms back then. And I joined as a very initial early member with the company. And when you're in such a small segment, in such a small company, all you're trying to do is figure out what to do. What is the company doing? And it takes you a while to figure out, okay, this is what really the startups are about. What Oyo taught me was a very interesting lesson in life, that probably something like that has not existed before, but create a solution. The problem already exists, but create a solution for scale. And I worked with them for about 4 or 5 years. And when you work in such a high growth company with a lot of passionate individuals, the next thing that you want to do is be able to start something of your own. However, after that, I ended up joining another very early stage startup as probably a third member of that organization. It was called the Moms Company, a company into the D2C space. Again, trying to solve a problem which existed in the market but did not have any solutions. And after that, I was like, I really need to solve for something at scale. I did not want to think that, this is my problem, and if I tend to solve for my problem, I will end up creating a good startup. A good idea is always to go by a 2x2 matrix and see, okay, how big the market is if the solution exists and what can you potentially do different. That is when the entire thought of Enlight came into picture, because real estate is a $1 trillion asset class. When the industry is so huge, it definitely should be having more problems than the solutions that we see in the real estate. So the only kind of solutions which have existed in the past in real estate back in the year 2017 were how to discover real estate, which means the buying platform from a 99 acres to a makaan.com. But that's the discovery stage. What happens after the properties are discovered? What is next to it? So the segment that I started looking at was a commercial real estate segment, a fairly large segment. And the biggest problem in this segment is what happens once people occupy a commercial real estate. What largely happens is there is a lot of wastage of natural resources, from water to energy to manpower. It goes absolutely unmonitored, and the reason is pretty simple, that buildings which were the largest sort of buildings which were built by the developers who were pretty famous were the ones who were opting for some sort of an integration mechanism in these buildings. But then there's the 90% of the market in the world in which there is no mechanism either to integrate or to monitor, let alone to figure out how to be able to save energy or water or manpower resources. That took me back to the thought that why is it not happening? It's not something that could not be done. There are some 4 or 5 large companies which solve for building integration and building automation in the commercial real estate. then what about the 90% of the market? Why is it not happening? The market was not exciting enough for most of the people. The idea was, who's going to pay? These are smaller buildings, some developers, some tenants, who knows the occupiers, and these are very expensive systems. So why not create affordable innovation for this market where they are able to automate any kind of a building, whether it's big or small, whether the use case is monitoring their energy use or whether it is controlling how the energy is being used, how to optimize the manpower, how to optimize natural resources. So as in when we entered the market, we kept on solving one problem after the other. It was never go with the entire comprehensive solution. Because when you go into the market, you realize a little more about it. That is what helps you figure out, okay, the problem statement is a little bigger. And today, after 6 years, we have a solution which is definitely comprehensive in nature. So I think it has been a step-by-step process. I will not say we went in and said, okay, on day one, this is what I'm going to create. But it has happened with its own sweet time and a lot of market realizations.
Wow, so interesting. So are you only in the commercial space or in the residential space as well?
We are largely into the commercial space because there is much more centralization in the commercial space. So how your HVAC is controlled to how your lightings are controlled to a singular water pump, everything happens in the commercial state. When I say commercial, it is offices, hospitals, hotels, industries, warehouses. But we have seen now some interesting use cases in residential as well. So a lot of luxury and premium properties want to provide a layer of automation to their residents. When you pay so much for maintenance, why cannot you have some automation which really does not cost a lot? So there are some interesting use cases in residential, whether your fire systems are active and working real time, what is your water system like, all these common utilities which are there in residential is largely that we automate today.
Okay, very interesting, Garima, and I've been very passionate about saving water and saving electricity since a very young age, and I'm so glad to see that actually we do have startups in this space and they are flourishing and how.
That's good to know, because I think people in today's generation are definitely getting a little more conscious, which also helps a company like us to be able to substantiate what we're doing further.
Yeah, awesome. So, Garima, as you mentioned before also, as a woman entrepreneur in this male-dominated industry, what are some of the unique challenges that you have faced and how have you overcome them?
So what is interesting, I'll just take a step back here, Shramika, and tell you something which is very unique to women. So whenever you are a part of the entrepreneurship community, you're referred to as a female entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because doctor is a doctor, engineer is an engineer, and the entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. It is as simple as that. So the first bias comes right from where you start. Oh, you're a female entrepreneur. I'm a female, yes, and I am an entrepreneur. And don't mix these together, right? So a lot of times I have to explain it to people. Listen, everybody can be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is not a profession actually. It is an attitude. That's what I have believed in. So starting from there, now you already know that the number of female entrepreneurs is actually pretty dim all across, and this is a very global number. And to top it, I am in an industry which is real estate, which probably has the most slim number of women, let alone women entrepreneurs working in this industry. If you look at real estate industry, there are about 38% of entry-level women jobs, about 28% of vice president or president jobs for women, and when it comes to C-level, it is a dismal 20%. And that is why in this industry, most of the decision makers, most of the decision owners are men. And to be in that industry where you know that the majority, and most importantly a very critical or a crucial majority, is going to be a gender bias definitely does come into the picture. And I will not say a lot of times, but yes, a few times I've had to face that when I have gone for my meetings, because I'll tell you another interesting thing. Being a female and being an entrepreneur is looked at differently. So when I would go for meetings and I would tell them that I'm the co-founder, one thing that they would tell me is, oh, so you do sales or you do marketing? And I would have to tell them I do everything, and my designation is actually the CTO. So I make the product which you are going to use. I would not say they would be disappointed, but some would be surprised and some would be very pleasantly surprised. Some would be very encouraging as well. But at the same time, a lot of times when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to final closure, they are still seeking comfort in a male counterpart from my company, right? Because they have been used to that. A real estate industry has not seen a lot of women into the decision-making scope. And I am yet to interact with a lot of women when it comes to decision-making in what our client diaspora looks like today. So at some point, because they have this inherent bias in them, and this is how they've seen this industry in last 20, 25, 30 years, that there are certain barriers which need to be broken, which is problematic. Some people do understand, some people do not understand. But then the only thing that I would say is that not to get disappointed about it and treat it like any other industry and any other person. So now when I go for a meeting, I neither think that I've come as a female entrepreneur, nor do I think I'm sitting in front of a male decision maker. I am going representing Enlight and sitting with a representative of another organization and there to make the most out of it, of that conversation.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at this whole gender diversity problem, that forget the gender, just look at it as a human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Treat it as a human or treat it as a profession, and that's about it. You need to take the gender out of few things so as not to be biased, because it is difficult. It is not very easy.
Yeah. Thanks for that very brilliant idea. Actually, forget the gender. Okay, but I'm sorry I'm bringing the gender back into the question. So I wanted to know, what are some of the unique strengths and advantages that women bring to the table in a startup world, or in any profession for that matter?
Because you've asked the startup world, and I have been a veteran in the startup industry. It's been about 10-11 years now. I will actually answer it. You know, a startup, when you enter any startup, generally you take a lot of time figuring out what you have to do, because there's a market research. Okay, do it. Now you have to do sales. You'll be very happy doing it. You have to do business development, analytics. You will go ahead, do it. A startup is never bound by limitations of what is your designation. And I think that is what makes a startup so exciting to work with. Having worked in OYO and having worked in Momsco, I think that was the most interesting part. In fact, when I would have 3 tasks to do which were absolutely unrelated to each other, I would go back and I would ask, is there something fourth that can I do, because I have some time on hand. Now, why I was able to do it, and I would relate it to most of the women that have been around me, who I have worked with also. I don't think there is anybody who can multitask better than women and do it flawlessly well. I'm not just saying a woman can multitask. I think they can multitask like anything. One of my earlier co-founders in Momsco was Malika. From R&D to finding out the product, to doing marketing, to sitting and doing everything and managing her family, managing her children. It was inspirational to see what she was able to do. And I'm not saying that a man wouldn't work as hard, but they can be focused. They have a very narrow focus. They can be doing one thing at a time. They might be able to do it well. Women have been used to multitasking historically. So I think what they bring to the table is not their designation or their experience. They are willing to try out more. They are willing to try it over and over again. And because there's one thing which is very common about most of the women that I see around me, they want a lot of perfection. So whatever their end result is, you already know that it's going to be at par or actually exceeding your expectations in what it is. So I think women make the best startup employees or co-founders or whatever the designation you want to give it. But I am yet to figure that out, that how every woman, how every female that I've worked with is able to do it so well and not even complaining. They will never go back and say, oh, because I had 2 tasks, I couldn't do 3. They're used to doing probably 20 tasks in a day. which is also about managing everybody around them when they come back to their own personal space. So I think that's how I see it.
Yeah, very well said. This just reminds us of all our homemakers and also, everybody around us. We see women, I should not say working harder, but definitely working smarter than men.
I would say both actually. They work very hard. I mean, look at you. You are doing this today here with me after having managing your house already, after having managing your professional commitments already, and now you are doing a project of passion.
Yeah.
You are an equivalent example of what I see in women.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Garima. All right, so on to the next question, Garima. On a technical side, how do you approach decision making and problem solving within your startup? Are there any particular strategies or principles that you give priority to?
One thing that I definitely do, because when you are, whether you're a CXO in a large company or whether you're a startup founder or a co-founder, something which can easily come into decision making is a knee-jerk reaction and the stress involved with it. So one thing that I definitely do not do at all is react when it comes to a lot of decision making, because each and every day new things come up. It could be new solutions and new problems and new market issues, whatever it is. So I don't think as an individual I really react. I am an individual which is very, very curious about the why in any decision making. So if any decision is to be taken which is critical, my first question starts with, but why? If I'm discussing with anything with anybody with the next course of what we want to do, or a course correction or an issue to be solved, my first question is why, because that why helps in getting to the root cause of an issue, of a problem, of the next decision to be taken. It really clears your mind out a lot, rather than just saying, okay, let's go ahead, do this, because it is so common to be influenced by what is around you, by a lot of noise around you, which should not penetrate into any person's decision making. Then the other thing is that if you have a clarity of what you want to do for the next 3 years, don't let any noise penetrate that either. Because if you have a conviction, you cannot take a decision today and then change it tomorrow and then change it day after. It just shows how flaky you are probably as an individual, which doesn't foster enough confidence of people also who are working with you, who are around you. So have more conviction in what you do, and that conviction only comes from two things: clarity and curiousness. So if you have the clarity of what exactly do you want to do, you will work around that day in and day out and achieve that in next 2 years, 3 years. And curiosity is about the things about which decision needs to be made today at this moment, because that is where you need to know the whys of the problem, the hows of the problem, and then it helps you make a easy decision. So I think never take stress. I am pretty zen in my life, so I don't actually take a lot of stress. I don't bother and fret about most of the small things in my life. It has helped me take decisions with a lot of clarity, and I would say also take some good decisions.
Awesome. So, are you a leader? I mean, okay, that's anyway a part of my rapid fire question, but your answer reminded me of Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and I just wanted to know, have you read that book?
Right. So I love reading. I love reading a lot. I try to read at least 2 to 3 books in a month. And
Wow.
Generally a lot of articles as well. I have a lot of inclination in economics and economic politics. So I end up reading a lot of things which are not even related to what I do or even the general things in life, but there are much more things that I'm interested in which I could write a book. I would love to write a book on economics.
Wow, that's very interesting. I am ready to buy. Please take the pre-order.
Thank God I have one reader. At least some incentive to write now.
Yes, please do. And whatever you said has actually applies to our life as well, right? You start with why, you have clarity, you're curious about things, and you know what you want to achieve at least in the near future of say 3 years, and then take decisions based on that, and do not waver away from those decisions.
Right.
Awesome. So, Garima, now it's time for the most interesting part of this chat, the rapid fire round. The first question for you for the rapid fire: have you had any significant mentors or role models throughout your journey as an entrepreneur, and how have they influenced you, your approach to leadership and business?
So I've had very different role models from different parts of my life, and today when I have to think of a lot of things, I go back to thinking about these 2-3 people. To begin with, it's been definitely my mother. She is a working professional. She's done a lot of things in her life. She is into literature. She writes books. She's also a doctor. She does a lot of things. And I think I borrow a lot of my understanding about work and people and life in general from her. She's a very calm person. She's able to do multiple things at once, do all of them well, undertake new things, do them well too. So definitely my mother. Then if I have to give you a name of a person who I've never met and never will, is Steve Jobs. But I've been an ardent fan, and in my house you will find each and every Steve Jobs books that would have been ever written. When I say ever, it means ever. I would have watched his all documentaries probably 100 times, because what I love about Steve Jobs is when you're too passionate about an idea, you can execute it well. A lot of people are passionate, a lot of people have good ideas, but have that crazy passion, and when you deliver a result, it is unparalleled. And what it gives rise to is a product which lasts for generations, and you're remembered for something that you created. So a lot of times I like to read what he's written, his thought process about marketing, the finesse of a product. Because if I think me or anybody else can get that into creating their company or their product, it will be very difficult to match up to what anybody has to provide to the world, that kind of a thought through and finesse of products. And personally, I've also had a mentor in one of my previous companies from whom I learned a lot. He was a person that I used to report to at some point in time, and he would ask me a lot of whys. What I've learned, the why and the curiosity part, is largely from him, because whenever I would go and say that, boss, we really need to do this. This is how it is to happen. And his first question would be in a very zen-like voice, okay, Garima, but why? And then I would give an answer, and he would say, okay, and how? And I'd be like, okay, this. Finally, after 1 hour of why and how, it will be me doing some data crunching for a small campaign that I wanted to run, or a call that I wanted to make for a partnership. That helped me actually think a lot how I think today. I think he was very evolved, which today also when I have issues or problems, I'll reach out to and I'll be like, boss, how would you think of this? He's like, okay, first let me hear from you. How are you thinking about it? Like, he will never give you any answers, but he'll ask you so many questions that you'll start questioning yourself that why did I not think of it? So I think I've had that way some good people that I've been surrounded by, that I have got to learn a lot from.
Interesting. Do show this video to your mom. She'll be happy to know that she's inspired her daughter in ways she may not even be aware of.
Absolutely. And she would love to see me on a video. To her, like, that's the next thrilling thing. She's like, oh, I saw you in a video. Even if it's on YouTube,
yeah.
She's pretty happy with it.
Yeah, moms will be moms. So the next question to you is, building startup can be demanding and time consuming. So how do you manage your work and life, the typical work-life balance question, and how do you maintain personal well-being amidst your entrepreneurial responsibilities?
Shramika, this is an answer which I really like to talk a lot about internally in my company, and a lot of my friends outside, a lot of peers. Work-life balance is probably a term which should not be used, first of all, because when you say I need to balance something out, the premise is I need to give equal time to certain things, okay, 50%, 50%. What that does is, when you are like, okay, I have to allocate equal time to two things, it gets you in a guilt sort of a matrix, because, okay, I gave only 40% here, 60% here, I was not able to justify something. It makes things very rigid for you. I believe in a work-life equilibrium, because equilibrium provides a lot of flexibility to you, which means that when I need to work, because for me, I don't view work as work. Work is an integral part of what I do, and I'm very, very passionate about doing things, about creating products. I'm extremely passionate. Day in, day out, I just don't think about Enlight or the products at Enlight, but I tend to think a lot about different products that are around me, or different services that are around me. What are people doing about it? So it forms a part of me every day. But at the same time, I am able to take out time for myself. In fact, as life has gotten busier in last couple of years, I've been also able to take up new hobby tasks for myself. I never knew swimming before. I've learned swimming very recently. I always wanted to play drums. I started learning drums for last 6-7 months now. I'm able to play it pretty well. There are new things that I've picked up, and I've been able to do it because you know that you need time for yourself. When you know you need time for yourself, you will not designate a time to you that, I'll wake up at 5, I'll do this at 6. Because let's say someday I wake up at 7, I was unwell. Does it mean I'm not going to do something which I was going to do at 6? No. If I wake up at 7, I'll do it probably at 9:30 or 11 o'clock at night, but I'll do it whenever I feel like it. So the more people are into a work-life equilibrium, which means you need to put in effort and energy into whatever you want, whenever you want it. Today you have to give more time to work, you will give it to work. Tomorrow you don't feel like it, you think that, I really want to do something else, I'm very burnt out. Do something else. You don't have to justify it even to yourself. The sooner people understand it, I think the simpler it will be.
Yeah, very well said. So it's all about being mindful and being present in the moment and understanding what is it that your body and you need right now.
Absolutely.
And just working accordingly.
Absolutely. Don't be rigid.
Yeah, very interesting. So the next question to you is, what advice would you give to other women who aspire to be entrepreneurs in any field?
First of all, never think of yourself as a woman entrepreneur. You are good as you are. You are an entrepreneur. If you have a brilliant enough idea that you think you can execute well, just go for it. You don't form any biases for you. A lot of times women think that, probably we need some sort of a support. There are probably certain functions I will not be able to do. Trust me, you learn everything on the go. Nobody knows anything from day one. Nobody. Men, women, nobody know it. From something as simple as registering a company to how to do marketing of it and how to manage the customers, you will learn it on the go. It's all a part of the job. Just go for it. Just have faith in yourself and know one thing, that across this journey, while you would definitely face some sort of a bias, you will also find a lot of good mentors. You will be able to culminate and connect with a good network of people who will help you. People are always there. If there are 10 people, you will find 2 people who would be willing enough to help you, which will take you ahead. And then you'll find 4 people and 16 people. That's how world is. That's how every company has been built by anybody. And you can build it too. And you can probably do a better job than what anybody else would have done in the past. So just believe in yourself and never feel guilty of not being able to devote or designate some X amount of time to a activity. And don't aim for perfection. Things happen. Things take their own time. At some point they're perfected. And if they're not perfected, it's even better, because then you are bettering something day on day. So just go for it.
Okay, so just do it.
Just do it. Absolutely, just do it.
Okay, awesome. So I think I've already got the answer to the next question, but let me put it this way. So what are your favorite books other than those about Steve Jobs? What are your favorite books, and who is your favorite author? And do you have any recommendations for the audience and me? Because
we ended our last question with just do it, I'm going to say pick up the book Shoe Dog. It is a brilliant book. It is such an amazing book by Phil Knight. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you are somebody who does a job from 9 to 6, there are things that you need to know about how to execute everything well. No matter what type of a job you're in, no matter what you do in a day-to-day, even if you're a student, because it's a unfiltered story about passion and executing that passion into one of the best product which has existed for all of us to see, and it has crossed across generations. Then I also love Made in Japan by Akio Morita, which is about Sony, how Sony started, and it's a very old book. I think it was published sometime in the 70s. Again, it gives you a very different insight about the market which existed some 50-60 years back and what it took to create this company then. And then I will not say I have a favorite author, but I do have some favorite genres of book. History is something that I really love. So from Anarchy to Bhutto to Emergency, I probably would have read all the books. I also like reading about what is happening new in different industries. So a book that I've recently picked up is Chip War, which is about the semiconductor industry, how things are evolving there, things that are affecting our supply chains. I happened to read a book which was on biology as such, which was The Code Breaker. So I think I have a lot of different interests and I end up reading a lot of things, and then when not reading all this, I really like to subscribe to certain subscriptions which are more on economics, because that is something that has a lot of my attention and passion as a subject.
Okay, very interesting. So you sound like an avid reader, and I love avid readers.
Awesome. No, I think it's a good thing to do. You just keep your mind very agile and active.
Yes, totally. Yeah, you build that mind muscle.
Right, and also you're a good conversation starter and keeper then.
Oh,
you
totally.
end up
Yes.
reading about a lot of things. You're able to pick up conversations anywhere and everywhere.
Right. And that I assume should be very helpful, especially for a co-founder like you.
Absolutely. It is helpful.
Okay, so one last question, Garima. What is the one life mantra that you swear by and urge others to do so?
I think one thing that I definitely swear by is, because we were speaking about books in the last question, Ikigai, which is a very Japanese concept in which a book has been written about. I think that is a very, very important term. People need to follow it, because what happens once that you're working in a corporate environment or you're an entrepreneur, what suddenly takes a backseat is your own peace of mind, your own zen, and you think, there's a lot of glamour in hustle. Hustling is good, hustling is amazing, but you cannot be overworked and burnt out because of this glamorous term. At the core of you, there should be inherent peace. The only thing which helps you become a better person, professionally or personally, is the amount of zen that you have inside you, because of which you don't react to a lot of situations. When you're an entrepreneur, Shramika, pretty much every day there are 5 new situations gazing at you and 20 people looking at you and asking, okay, what to do now? Things have gone really bad. And one way of it is just reacting, things have gone bad, now what to do? Another way of it is, things have gone bad. What are the things that are really bad? What are things that are perceivably bad? What are things that 2 people think are bad but are actually not so bad? And then being able to prioritize and then being able to solve. But that comes with a lot of difficulty, because for that you need to have inherent peace within you and not react to things suddenly. The more you react, the more problematic things get, and that becomes a downward spiral. Because each and every day then you're burnt out, you're bogged down, you're like, okay, this has really not happened, things are going worse. But things will go worse when you least expect them to. For me, I am in the real estate industry, making products for the real estate industry. The worst that could have happened to me was COVID, because every commercial segment which existed just shut down, let alone selling products. There was a time in which I was thinking that, will it ever come back? Will I be able to push my products into the market? Will there ever be a market? But had I thought more about it, it would have just made me go down that downward spiral more and more. Instead, what I thought, we could pivot a lot of things. That gave us a lot of new insight into how to build the product. But that could only happen because probably I'll stress about something for not more than 30 seconds. That's my maximum time to stress about something. Take a step back to be able to view things much further and forward. Taking a step back always helps.
Awesome. Nice. That as again, as I said before, this can be applied to any part of our life, and we will have a solution in front of us with that.
Absolutely, because Shramika, entrepreneurship is not very different from life, right?
Yeah.
The
totally.
better you are able to apply the normal logic of life to things that you do, you will be able to sail through entrepreneurship similarly if you're able to sail through life.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said, Garima. So, thank you so much, Garima, for taking out the time on a Sunday morning and chatting with me and sharing so many pearls of wisdom with all of us. I'm definitely ending this conversation being wiser than what I was when I started this conversation. So, thank you so much and keep up the good work and keep inspiring all of us, not just women, but people in general.
No, thank you so much, Shramika, for having me. And it is equally exciting to talk to you because, as I said, that what you are also doing is nothing less than an entrepreneurship, right? That also is
Thank
driven
you.
through by your passion. So, very happy to speak to you.
Thank you so much once again. So that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed having this chat with Garima. I'll see you again next week. Until then, happy learning and bye. Bye, Garima.
Bye, Shramika.